Welcome everybody to the February 12th Ledge Rep Network meeting. It is the 6th week of the legislative session, 3 weeks to go. The next cutoff date is tomorrow at 5 p.m. So that means that any bill introduced in the House has to make it out of the House floor by tomorrow at 5 p.m. in order for it to continue over to the Senate and go through the same process that it did in the House in order to pass essentially and be enacted into law. So from a process perspective, we're like halfway through the ledge session, although in terms of days perspective, we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning. So those are good little data points to keep in mind. We're going to make it. I believe it. Thank you all for being here tonight. Recognize a lot of you have levies and bonds on your ballots. Tonight is a nerve-wracking night. There's so much at stake, including staff, community members, students, as well as just your own mental health and well-being. So thanks for sharing this time with us. I am happy to field some questions about the ledge session to start. And then where I'd like for us to head is we have several school directors here tonight who have been ledge reps for a varied amount of time, but have some samples of some ways in which they have presented content about the legislative process to their fellow school board members as a way for you, if you haven't had a chance to do that, or if you want some new ideas about how to do it even better, you might get some ideas from your colleagues here, which is really what this space is designed for. It's about learning, but it's also about sharing ideas between one another. So let me, before we pass it off to Gary, Lakeisha, and Sarah, if she manages to make it, I'm just going to quickly show you the bill tracker for this week in case you haven't had a chance to take a look at it. I just want to be sure you all are apprised to what is going on after 5 o'clock tomorrow, which is the floor activity cutoff. So when you go to the strategic advocacy website on WSSDA Online and go to legislative updates, there's the bill tracker link. And you can essentially open that, and I bet you won't be able to see it. So I'm going to have to close this and open it back up. I'm going to download it and put it to my desktop. And then I'm going to stop my share. And then I'm going to open my share. I've only had to do this wrong like at least 100 times before I figured out how to do it right. Oh, that still wasn't right. Let's do that. I'm looking at you, Rick. Can you see a document that says bill tracking status update? No, I think it's still the wrong one. Sorry. Now I think I've got the right one. Okay, good, nice. All right, so starting on Wednesday, Valentine's Day. Just the best way to celebrate love is to go back into committee hearing time. In Senate Ed, there are multiple bills, but I wouldn't say bills that WSSDA has been highly involved in. And you'll note that now with the bill tracker, since we whittled from 213 bills at the very beginning of session down to 76 now, which feels much more manageable, although it's still a lot. I was able to go in for each of the bill and basically give sort of a status update on where we're at. So if it says monitoring or neutral, essentially that means that WSSDA either doesn't WSSDA doesn't have a member adopted position related to it, or it's a little outside of our lane, or we might also know that it's not going anywhere, or we also know that there's another organization that's really leading it. So monitoring or neutral essentially means we're watching it, but WSSDA as an organization is not weighing in, largely because we don't have a member adopted position and it wasn't one of your member adopted priorities. However, something like House Bill 1146, notifying high school students and their families about dual credit programs. We have quite a few positions related to the advancement of dual credit opportunities. So sort of interrelated with advancing dual credit opportunities is this bill that would increase communication and notification about dual credit programs. So it's sort of tangentially related to one or more positions that we have. So I signed in supportively, but we won't take any additional action on the bill because it's
Well,
non-consequential and not one of your member adopted priorities. However, once we move down to actually at the same time on the same day, also on Valentine's Day at 10:30, there is a House Education Committee hearing and several bills that are more consequential to WSSDA and our members. We will be expressing concerns related to 5462. We signed in as other, and I will be sending a robust communication about the areas of the bill that align with our member adopted priorities, largely around diversity and our equity statement. However, concerns around the reduction of local control. And as with anything being asked of us from this legislative session, anything that we're asked to do in addition to what's happening already, unless it's funded as an unfunded mandate, there is definitely this perception amongst our legislature that if you're already doing something like this, it's just easy to just add this to it. But we all know that that takes time, attention, processing and planning, and ultimately that's related to staff capacity, which costs money at the end of the day, especially around the bargaining table. So we'll be expressing that as it relates to 5462, as well as concerns around the burden of proof. We had talked about that at a previous in session live and also shared through one of the Friday in sessions, just some of the concerns around shifting the burden of proof from parents who have complaints about the school district and accusations or claims that the school district is not following through on delivering on the IEP for students. Instead, shifts the burden of proof to the school district itself. And we are deeply concerned about this at the very philosophical level, because it insinuates that school districts aren't doing their job in this space. And we believe that there's a lack of understanding from some of our legislators about the responsiveness and the process of districts in response to parent and family complaints in this area. And then in addition to that, we recognize that it will cost districts money if they have to defend from this perspective. So we have asked our legislators for an exemption when the parent or guardians already have legal counsel secured in place. And and then another exemption if the school district is unwilling to mediate through the process. So far, no legislators have taken us up on those exemption amendment requests. So we will continue to weigh in as other with significant concerns, and it's a high priority for us. Testifying as highly pro on 8007. This is what they call it's a joint measure basically towards the federal government requesting that they fully fund the 40% of costs for IDEA. It's a good idea. What kind of actual impact it has is pretty low really in reality, but of course we will continue to support it. And this is actually wrong. We're not monitoring it. We are actually weighing in on it. We've got Lisa Keating, who is the chair of the Federal Relations Network, actually coming to Olympia to deliver testimony in support of it. And we'll also communicate the message. This is great. We definitely want feds to fulfill their obligation for IDEA. At the same time, this does not leave you off the hook, state legislators, for your share of fully funding special education as well. So we'll say it's a yes and. Then as we move to Thursday, 8 a.m., we've got House Education meeting, several bills that are good ideas in philosophy. We don't have a lot of skin in the game in terms of member adopted positions around them. Sorry, I'm just looking. Folks are kind of coming in and out of mute, so I'm going to mute folks as I hear background noise. So bleeding control equipment in schools, tribal education compact schools, opioid use reversal medication in schools. We don't have positions on any of those. Again, good ideas. None of them are funded with the legislature. So if you have perspective to offer in terms of actual impact, that would be helpful. We did sign in supportively on the Running Start position, as we do have a member adopted position that relates to that specifically. Then moving down to Senate Early Learning on Thursday afternoon. Just reviewing here, we will be testifying pro on 1044. This is the bill that McIntyre introduced last session and almost made through the finish line, didn't quite get there last session. And so we are fairly confident it will make it all the way through. This basically helps school districts who have a hard time passing bonds, who are also small school districts, be able to access SCAP funding in the absence of possible bond passage. And if any of you are interested in testifying supportively on this bill on behalf of WSSDA, I'm still looking for someone who actually can speak to the value at the local level, and would love to work with you on testimony if you're willing to represent WSSDA here. And again, that's Thursday at 1:30 if you are available, and you could testify remotely as an option, and lots of folks are doing that.
Sorry, Marissa, which bill was that?
That's 1044 on financial assistance to small school districts.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Let's see, then pretty much the rest are monitoring. We do have a position on flexible year-round calendars. So we signed in support of the increased eligibility for flexible school waivers as just as a sign-in. And then a couple things that are not listed here that were just scheduled. I have to update this and repost to our website. The Senate Ways and Means Committee will meet on Thursday at 4 o'clock to discuss the capital budget, and we will be testifying very supportively on the Senate side for the capital budget. There are multiple really great elements on the Senate side for capital budget. Most specifically, I'm actually going to stop my share so I can just look at some faces here. The proposed capital budget on the Senate side would increase the SCAP per square footage allocation from 250 to 400. It allocates it provides an increase for small schools modernization. It provides an increase for emergency repairs. It provides an increase for facility repairs, and it provides an increase for the Healthy Kids, Healthy Schools grant program. So lots of capital related increases on the Senate side. So our message will be, thank you, please maintain those increases for our schools. And also, Senate, please hold firm when the House and you start negotiations. The House capital budget has not yet been released yet, but I will tell you, word on the street is that it's pretty abysmal. To the point where we understand that the SCAP program monies in general are at very high risk of becoming inaccessible to many of our school districts moving forward. And details of that are yet to be released, but it shows that there will be a really big tension between the House and the Senate as it relates to their capital budgets. They're probably going to have some tension related to their operating budgets too, which we anticipate seeing on Sunday or Monday. But as it relates to the capital budget, we already know for sure that Senate is the way that we want it to go. That's going to be our best case scenario. So I think I saw that some folks put some things into chat. Oh, great. Crystal, you can testify. That is wonderful. I will be in touch with you about that, and most likely remote is just fine. Lakeisha's going to help me with mute. Thank you, Lakeisha. Mike, yeah, I mean, we're going to get something and we won't like it, actually, is how I would summarize. We'll get a little and it won't be enough. And I always look back on a ledge session and think it could have been worse. Which is not necessarily optimal for our operations. Anyway, so let's see. I don't think I see any other questions. So if you do have questions, do please feel free to pop them into the chat at any point. I think I gave highlights for the week ahead. So if I missed anything or you'd like to share anything, please just put comment or question in the chat. Other than that, I do want to give space and time for some of your fellow school board members to sort of share a little bit about how they take this onslaught of information related to every legislative session, because there's never a slow session, and how they basically digest that and make meaning of it and present it to their fellow school board members. So sort of the order of operations I'm going to go in is I'm going to have Sarah kind of set us up. Sarah and Lakeisha actually are both Ledge Committee members and designed and worked on some general templates for a PowerPoint presentation, and then some guidance that I'd like for the two of you, if you wouldn't mind just jumping in and sharing a little bit about how you got started and what you might advise. And then we'll have Gary actually show an actual presentation that he's given to his fellow school board members based on some of that modeling from the two of you. Lakeisha, Sarah, one of you'd like to go first?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Lakeisha Phillips, Federal Way School District, and I am the legislative rep for my board and the current WSSDA legislative chair. I was on Ledge Committee for a while, and we definitely had some deep writers, I would say. I'm not the strongest writer. I'm a professor by trade, but I don't actually like writing that much. And there were some Ledge Committee members that could put out some pretty awesome emails with lots of information. I know I enjoyed them from former school board director Jim from Squim, so shout out to Jim. And so it kind of got me in the process of like processing all the information that's coming through these sessions. Marissa always tells us we do have a wonderful newsletter called In Session. At one point, there was a podcast. I still have the link, but I didn't see it up and running this time. There was a podcast. And so I was trying to capture all that information. I was like, wow, it would be really nice if I just had it in a slide deck that I could share at my school board meeting to help walk me through the process. So I was at the meeting and talked with a couple of other school board directors, and two wonderful directors said they would help me with this vision. And so we kind of created just a really short template. And I believe Sarah shared it with, I think, everybody. And so we kind of have a little bit of template, but it sounds like Gary might be showing it, so I don't need to show it. You want me to show you the template, or do you not?
I just uploaded it into the chat so everybody can have the sort of the general template, and then Gary definitely prettied it up a little bit and added more content. If you are unable to download anything from chat, because I know some folks might be actually driving right now, that would not be wise of you to download while you are driving. I can also send this out after the call to all the ledge reps on this invite, so you have it in your inbox. I will do that following this. Before we pass it off to Gary, Sarah, what would you add to sort of process or practices that you might recommend in terms of taking this template and bringing it to life, or any other tools that you use where you sit?
Sure, thank you. So, I'll second the brilliance of Lakeisha, who said, how can we make this easier for everyone? We want everyone to be able to engage their boards and their communities. And what if we just made a slide deck like this? I want to recognize Denise Tracy, who collaborated and started this, and we built it from there. So it's definitely a collaborative effort all together. We've in Director Area 2, that's King County, we've been sending it out weekly. I'm behind Director Area 2, sorry, you'll have it any minute now for this week. Where exactly this is intended to be a real bare bones, you make it look like your district, I'm excited to see Gary's. Make it look what serves you. We intentionally left some slides where you can input your own priorities. I did that for my first presentation this year with my board, just to I used this presentation to ground my board on like session and what's ahead and what are the key bills that we're looking at. I've then since started using just a one pager since then. So I used the template as like the kickoff. And then each week I'm giving a one pager about like, here's the bills we talked about that first presentation, and here's where they are in the process, which I'm happy to share or upload as desired. I want to give Gary time to show his. So I think just as you start getting accustomed to providing these updates with your board, at least for me, I've started to feel out like what best supports my colleagues in their being able to like keep up with session. Like it's so much to ingest, right? Like how do we keep it simple for our colleagues? How do we keep it focused on our own district priorities? Offer them information that they can respond to. I've also again followed Lakeisha's lead of like after that first presentation, I give them a one pager and I say, I'm going to talk with you about like 2 of the new bills, and then the rest of this, you ask any questions you want on anything else on this sheet, but I'm not going back through it every week now. So that's definitely been just really helpful for our board.
Thank you,
think
Sarah. That is very helpful. I think, are you able, I did give you co-host capabilities. Would you be willing to upload one of your, maybe your most recent one pager as a model into the chat? Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Marissa?
Lakeisha, did you have something to add? Yeah.
Yeah, just one thing for all the new people, because I know I was overwhelmed. It is really just to give you like a template. And I would say sticking with your board's priorities, like we have our district priorities. So I typically talk about the district priorities and I don't get into anything else. Because I've learned, as Marissa's telling us, we started off with like this year it was like 200 and now we're down to, are we down to 100? So one of my board members,
76. We're down to 76. And look,
76.
that'll get
Well,
even lower, but tomorrow. Hopefully the good ones stay though.
Yeah, one of my board members says, well, I want to talk about this, this, and this. And I said, yeah, let's just stick with our district priorities because those are what really matter to our district and our students and our kids. I was like, and we'll see what happens. And so I think I'm excited to go back and share. So now we're down to 76, which is why we try not to stick to the priorities and try not to stress out your superintendent. I always check in with my superintendent and say, are these things in alignment with what we need? And she says yes, and it's just supporting the community and being involved in a positive advocacy efforts where they're feeling a little bit more informed. And people do like to hear that because I think they think we make up a lot of these laws. And so they're always happy or, like, oh, okay, here's the process. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Thanks, Lakeisha. Great. All right. So looks like folks are appreciative of the template. So let's see how, Gary, you've taken it to the next level.
Okay.
Do you
Well-
want to drive or you want me to drive? Because I have the one that you sent me.
I'll
back.
drive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll drive. You drive.
Yes. Thank you.
You bet.
I'll just start out saying that I have 2 brand new board members and I have 2 other ones that are not really familiar with the legislative process. And my goal was to just start fresh and update everybody. And also, there was an overwhelming amount of bills in a very short session, and I was trying to grasp it myself since we didn't have a sole focus of special education and we were comparing Senate and House bills. It was kind of like, here's all the priorities that we have, and how am I going to group them together? When Sarah sent out her email, it had like bills in focus under special education and transportation. So I got the idea of how to bucket and consolidate it so it was digestible. And I also thought about it as relevance for areas within our district. So we could talk to the transportation department, or I could talk to special ed, or we could talk to finance and operations and really be concise of what they needed to focus on for input. And luckily, we also have a communications person that is talented, and our student reps criticized at one point boring presentations. So they taught us about Canva. And if you have not been there, I will put a link in chat. But you can go and get cool templates that will allow you to design a nice presentation if you're not graphically inclined. Let's see. So this is what it turned out to be. And that is our state building there. And then I just took the ledge rep roll from our documents and put it in, and then talked about the day on the hill that we were going to and how, we kind of cover the days, and talked about what type of session it is and the cutoff date so they understood the compressed timeline, and then different ways that we can advocate for different bills. And then provided a link to the bill watch list and also our priorities that we have. And then this is information that came from, I think, Sarah's email. And then what I used in these slides was something called Smart Art. And so you have a main bullet with the top information, then sub-bullets are the white text. And through there, you can change all the different looks and colors and all that good stuff. So supplemental funding model changes, transportation, levies and bonds, and then of course board compensation. And then at the end, I included all our representatives. We are in both the 5th and the 12th district, and then the 8th congressional district, and our U.S. senators. Our district is fortunate that we get about 38% of our funding from federal government, so we're doing better than most, I'd say, in special ed funding in that respect. So that's about it in a nutshell. I think Sarah in some ways has a more practice method of informing board members that I'm going to look to kind of follow and think about how I can get more input on the WSSDA priorities and see. Our board has never, I guess, put forth a position or a resolution. And we might want to weigh in on a couple that are out there. So this would be a year for me to help educate everybody on that process, which starts March 13th.
March 11th.
March 11th. Okay.
Nice. Gary, that is such an awesome PowerPoint presentation. I can imagine people have PowerPoint envy as well as a little bit of intimidation. And so I will just say, this is certainly not an expectation that you all are supporting your board in exactly the same way. Everybody has different strengths, talents, and skills, and different ways of approaching the work, and different ways that your board would like to have you share the work. So remember, it's okay to crawl before you walk, before you run, before you fly. So Gary has done a beautiful job, but has also, Gary, you've been in the role now for what, has it been 3 or 4 years or more?
I think this is the 4th year coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just ask for all of you to give yourself grace and not expect to go from just being voluntold that you're the board rep or the ledge rep to delivering presentations like that. So I'm curious.
And
Yeah.
I did work as a trainer for a few years and had to create presentations.
Sure, that's great.
That helps.
You also looked to some other people for some support. So you looked to your staff. So I heard you say you worked with your communications folks. You also worked with your student board reps. So you didn't do this in a vacuum, right? Like you were working as part of a team, which actually makes the work more valuable and more relevant. I also know all of you have other responsibilities. Some of you are working a full-time job or more, plus kids, plus your school board responsibilities. And maybe you're even volunteering at an animal shelter. Who knows? Y'all have lots of stuff going on. So I would encourage you to, I'm wondering, Gary, could folks borrow parts of your template? Would that be permissible? Do they need to get permission from you? And then
It is
also,
in the chat.
it's in the chat. That's great. So feel free to take it and run with it.
Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you, Gary, for sharing. And then I'm wondering, do you present this level of detail at each of your board meetings? You meet every other week? Are you, how long of time are you given? And do you do this every week during, or every other week during the ledge session? What's kind of the cadence of your presentation?
I've only done this once, and I'm working with my superintendent to go on the next board meeting and provide an update. So I'm kind of like where Sarah is. I'm looking for the bill cutoff to see what's still alive and what our next steps are.
Nice. That's great.
And I guess the other note in the presentation on the slides, it has like a summary, and those are here, let me share again if I can. Sorry. Sorry, I had to find the right screen to share. Okay, so if you've all looked up a bill, this is our Washington State Legislature screen here. And if you want your bill, you just type in the name and make sure you have the correct year, because sometimes they reuse numbers. And then what I do is I pull up the House Bill report to get the summary here that gives you all the text that you might want to put in to give a quick summary of the bill and the changes. So that's about it. The bill title and that summary is what I include.
That's awesome. Thank you for showing folks that.
Yep.
That's my trick too.
Well, I must have copied it then.
I mean, sometimes I do have to read every bill or a bill line for line, but that's certainly not my favorite practice. I'll say that.
Yeah.
That's what the lawyers are for. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. If anybody has questions for Gary, Lakeisha, Sarah, happy to have you throw those out. Just a couple tips from here. So as you heard, Gary's been doing this for 4 years, so he's a little bit more advanced, right, than any of you are expected to be. Just as a starting point, I would recommend that you have a standing agenda item on your board meeting agendas. And that could just be for 15 minutes as a starting point. And some of you may be thinking, oh, no, no, no. I have no idea what would I say? Well, I would encourage you to just ask questions. It is the perfect way to be a ledge rep without having to know things. So you can ask your fellow board members what they would like for you to bring back to them, what's helpful. You could ask your fellow board members what bills they would like for you to get more information on and bring back to them, or at least share via email. So ask questions about what they hope for from your role, what things are interesting to them, what issue areas of priority, and then you can start developing your own understanding of what it means to be a ledge rep for your own board based on questions that you ask, because you don't have to know everything on the agenda or when you show up. Let's see, I just want to make sure I'm not missing any questions. Thanks for sharing contact information, Sarah, Gary, for the resources. If nobody has questions about sort of this modeling a little bit, I want to pivot to the position window. Is that okay? Right. I am going to do that and walk you through a little bit of the process here. So I recognize ledge session is not over yet. And so our focus is mine and yours is probably squarely on that, and then how to digest what happens. But I'm putting a seed in your brain for you to start thinking about and talking with your fellow school board members about the platform revision window. And so what is coming up, we reference the date March 11th through April 8th, is the position window opening. And that is the time during which school boards have the opportunity, certainly aren't required, but have the opportunity to submit position proposals for our member adopted position platform. So I'm going to start with just making sure you know how to find the existing positions, because that's where you should start. This is something as a ledge rep, you should know how to find and also how to navigate. Because it is complex and your fellow school board members may not have as much of an understanding. So I'm navigating you to where to find it on our website. So you go to About and you go to WSSDA Positions and just click on WSSDA Positions, and there's a button to go to the catalog. So I want to note that there are 225 total member adopted positions in the WSSDA platform. And that is comprised of two different types of positions. One is permanent, one is legislative. Permanent positions are foundational. They're like the core beliefs of the organization, you. And then legislative is more sort of timely and action oriented. WSSDA will initiate or support legislation that blah, 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 blah. Let's say as you start this conversation, you and your board members want to know if there's a position that relates to special education. So you're going to type in this search bar. Right now you see that everything is clicked here. That means all of the different types of positions, regardless of how they're organized and whether or not they're legislative or permanent, are all going to be listed. That's an automatic check, so you don't have to uncheck anything. And this is the search. So you'll type in special education, and what will pull up are all of the positions that either have special education in the title or in the content of the position itself. You can see there are about 10 here. And so if you're interested, if special education is a priority for you and you want to be sure it's represented in our platform, you probably will. I mean, you could spend 30 minutes during a meeting going through each of these positions and making sure that your district's interests are reflected here. And let's say you go through all 10 of these and something is not reflected. I'll give you a very concrete example of something that happened just a few years ago. Support for special education programs is generally one of your top prioritized positions following General Assembly every year. This is one of the positions that typically ends up in the top 10, if not the top 5, if not the top 3, quite honestly. And several years ago, school director, school board brought forward an amendment or a revision to this existing position to add language around, let me look at these small words. This, whoop, nope, wait. This one, the last bullet. So it became, we became aware of the fact that some of you were submitting safety net applications, and instead of that application being processed and you receiving the funds allocated for that purpose, you were penalized either with a reduction in total funds or the prevention of receiving those funds entirely. And in some cases, the errors on your application process were non-substantive in nature, which means they could have been corrected easily with feedback from the review. So this bullet was actually not a part of this position before 2022, but in 2022, a member district brought forward this proposal as a part of amendment to the existing position. And at General Assembly, that was debated on, and there was a vote of the 295 districts and the voting delegates who attended, and this position amendment passed. So it was updated and revised on our position platform here in 2022 and added this language. Ironically, not ironically, intentionally, there is a bill this session, and I'm forgetting it off the top of my head because I have so many bill numbers in my head, but it is a Senator Braun bill that Kelsey Hamilton of the Chehalis School District school board worked with Senator Braun on bringing forward a bill that would help reduce or eliminate penalties for non-substantive errors on safety net applications. And we have been able as an organization to help champion that bill because we had a position in place that specifically mentioned that that was an interest area for us, and also that it was a priority collectively of our membership. So from soup to nuts, that's really just important for you to have reference. That's the ultimate goal of these positions, is that they don't just bring forward these lofty ideas, but that they actually provide a level of detail that helps us in communicating with our legislators how to make policies or resources more relevant and responsive to your districts in totality. So it's a concrete example of what you might bring forward. So there are 224 other positions for you to review. I just wanted to use that one sort of as an example. I'm going to go back to the positions platform page. Hold on, let's see. WSSDA positions page for you to see the timeline this year. It adjusts every year a little bit. So each year the deadlines and dates are a little bit different because ledge session is either 60 days long or 105 days long. So we have had to negotiate around that in order to give you time to really ground yourself in what is and what isn't available to us through the platform in response to legislation. So you will see really year round, you should be discussing within your board the existing position platform, what's there that aligns with your priorities and what doesn't exist and needs to be changed. Please pause. My pup is having a small meltdown being locked into the room with me. Okay, I'm back. Everybody's fine. Everybody is fine. March 11th, the position proposal window will open. There is a checklist here that we talked about a little bit last week, and I would encourage you to, maybe I'll take a look at it here in a minute so we can walk through it to be sure. It's basically a way for you to verify that before you submit any kind of proposal, that it's in line with the expectations of the proposal window. Once the link is available on March 11th, it will be linked here. And then there's a document here that I'll also walk through in a second just to show who can submit a proposal. The position window will close on April 8th at 5 p.m., no exceptions. And that's another reason why we are giving such significantly advanced notice, because in essence, from the time we first brought this up last week, it gives 2 months of notice before the position window closes for you to start the conversation, start drafting either a new position or some revisions to an existing position should you choose to, and then also getting board approval to submit. You have to have at least 3 of your 5 or 4 of your 7 board members approve or agree upon any proposed position amendment or new position proposal in order to submit it through the window. Then in April and May, the Legislative and Resolutions committees will come together to review the positions. Legislative committee will review legislative positions. Resolutions will review permanent positions. Then the handbook will be released at some point during the summer. We don't have dates locked in quite yet, but we do know that at least a month before General Assembly, so sometime mid-August, the final version of the handbook will be made available. There may be more than one iteration, so we just say the final version sometime in August, with anticipation that General Assembly will occur this year on September 20th and 21st. This year, General Assembly will be held on the west side. Since it was in Spokane last year, it will be on the west side this year in the SeaTac area. It will also be held in a hybrid format, so you can attend either in person for a registration fee or for free online from anywhere in the state. Then there will be a prioritization process in September and October. The legislative priorities for the organization reflecting your priorities will be released in October. Then you will share your priorities, our collective priorities with your legislators. And then next year's ledge session starts on January 13th, 2025. So quite a bit to anticipate here in the year ahead, but always want to give you as much notice as possible. So I'm going to open up the proposed checklist and I'm going to ask, I don't see anybody live. Oh, Rick, I do see you live. Can you see the once a year in the spring school boards can propose revisions? Great. So this is just a helpful tool for you all to share out with your fellow school board members, but especially for you in considering how you might want to participate, how to go about submitting a position. So first, think about as a board what you really are hoping to elevate with legislators related to advocacy efforts reflective of your district's needs. Then review the member adopted positions to see if the positions already address those needs. Then before crafting a new position to propose, determine if you can amend an existing position. If you need any help with that, your ledge committee members or myself are happy to lend some support as you navigate that and give some insights as to what might work best. Then you might want to reach out to your director area representative on the ledge or res committees if you have questions about the process. Schedule one or more board meetings to discuss the proposals. I understand some boards have a couple work sessions to go through the position platform itself, review the positions, have discussions around what they need. But of course, in order to vote on a position, votes have to take place in a public space. So that would be part of an agenda posted in advance as part of a public hearing. And you do have to have board approval in order to submit. You might want to share your board's proposal with other school boards to see if other school boards want to sign on. And then a couple recommendations about the actual position language itself. Please do not reference WACs or RCWs because they're subject to change, which means that it would invalidate the position. If you're submitting a permanent position proposal, it starts with WSSDA believes blank, blank, blank. And if you're submitting a legislative position proposal, it starts as WSSDA will support or initiate legislation that. So you've got your beginning stem sentences that are different for a permanent or legislative position already there. Please spell out the acronyms before you use them, and then you can just use the acronym following. Build your proposal language in a Word document and check for spelling errors, grammar before you cut and paste it into the form itself. And please be as concise to the point as possible. Clear is kind, and a lot of adjectives are just not necessary. We just really need to know what you're trying to go for. And then there will be an opportunity when you submit, whether it's a revision or a new position, data, statutory references, work group reports, any kind of information that can support the justification of moving that position forward. And then you will also be asked on your form what date the board approved the submission of that proposal. So be prepared to enter that date in the form when you submit. I'm going to stop sharing. I just shared a lot of information. I love seeing Rick and Jen's face. Thanks for being live for me. You're here with me. Sarah is too. Any questions or comments? Anybody who's gone through the process of submitting a proposal through the window that would like to offer any recommendations or advisements? Not sure. Oh, Sarah Bettenell has an idea. Let's hear it, Sarah.
I just strongly encourage connecting with your ledge reps, your legislative committee representatives, because many of us have gone through the process a few times, and also when the positions are, or revisions to positions are submitted, the committee meets and discusses them, and brings back recommendations on passing or not passing as it relates to would it support WSSDA collective advocacy. And sometimes the rationale for why it receives that recommendation has something to do with like, is it trying to write law? We're not trying to write law in the positions. We're trying to make like value statements or statements around outcomes of legislation that we hope to see, like full funding. Oh, that I'm gonna save that thought. Let me peg that one. So just lean on your elected representatives, because we're here to support you. And we can offer insight that can strengthen your submissions. That little thing that I was going to footnote is, I'd say something we've all learned in Ledge Committee in the last few years is always say and amply fund, not just fully fund, because we've learned the lesson that they can decide that they fully funded their definition of education. So we've all started in the positions that we've started submitting or revising, saying supporting legislation and amply funding XYZ.
Thank you, Sarah. That's really helpful. There's a question, if anyone has submitted a position proposal and had success, and I guess I would define success as you successfully submitted a proposal and then it was part of General Assembly. Essentially, what I should tell you is if you submit a position proposal, it will come to General Assembly. Ledge Committee and Resolutions Committee do not have the authority to say, no, it can't go. They do have the authority to give a do pass or a do not pass recommendation, but any position proposal that you submit through the window will be in the General Assembly handbook and for discussion at General Assembly that year. So anybody had some success that they might offer submitting a revision or a new position proposal through the process, and anything you'd like to share about that experience? I know Sarah has, so that was a good pause, Sarah. You gave plenty of space
I'm
for
like,
someone
I'm
to
not the
volunteer.
only one on this call who's done it. Come on.
Well, other people who have done it maybe are making dinner or doing something. So
All good, all good. No,
yeah,
no
thank
shame,
you.
no shame. I just wanted other people to chime in because we've all just had a lot of experiences here. I mean, yeah, our district has both oh, it's okay, Trish, no problem. Lucretia, the question is, have you had success Lucretia, you should speak to this. Come on, you've had a position that had 100% support. The question is, anyone who has had success submitting a position and it being adopted by the membership.
Okay,
Let's
sure.
go.
I can talk about that. I entered a position for a few years ago, and it was around digital equity. I think the work was about calling districts from across the state. I just called a lot of people and said, hi, like random rural district, can I meet with you? And they were totally great and shared all their concerns. And I'm like, hey, like, how's it going? You know, one district had, I forgot, it was very small amount of children. And I was like, I appreciate it. Can we kind of talk about this? So really just reaching out to people ahead of time across the state and building relationship and saying, this is what's happening for my students, what's kind of happening with yours. And like trying to craft something that really captures the breadth of Washington, which is really, really difficult to do. But I was able to do it. And I will say that's probably one of the few positions that I think got like, yeah, it was pretty much unanimous, which was nice. Um, you know, that we can get there. And it was pretty robust, but I just enjoyed building a relationship with everybody and kind of asking some of those questions. So I really hope and wish that we can continue to do that. Call other people, call other districts, everywhere you can, and just kind of get as much feedback as possible. And I think that was the guys. We share students, right? Nobody stays in the same district forever. So I was like, how does this impact you if my kids were there and your kids were here? And I think that was able to help us get to where we needed to. Is that it?
Thanks, Lakeisha. I don't know if you can see, but the position that you collaborated with others on and was adopted by the membership at General Assembly is on the screen right now.
Yeah, it went really well. And I think a lot of other outside organizations really got on board. I know the legislator appreciated it. I think the Seattle Times ended up writing something about it and it kind of did pretty well. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would say this is one of the more robust positions that we have. You'll notice that there are a lot of bullets and there's a lot of specificity. As you may remember, there was a pandemic and a great need for digital equity across our state. And so it was born from some of that increased awareness and obvious need. And I think to Lakeisha's point, the fact that she collaborated with other districts helped to inform a more comprehensive submission. So you see a lot of specificity in there because there was some due diligence given to finding out if we're going to put forward this digital education access for all position, what are all the things that need to be in it in order for it to be as comprehensive and representative as possible. So big thanks to Lakeisha for leading that effort, and it's a model for all of you as well. I'll also just say that, you know, I recognize there's a lot of capacity issues for a lot of you, so it might seem overwhelming to think, well, there's this issue area we really want to bring forward. I'm not sure how much time we're going to have to call a bunch of other districts. That's okay. The concept comes forward, it is discussed. There's a process that will be in place for amending it or adding to it. And then once it's adopted, it's in our platform. And as the years progress, you can add more to it over time. So I guess I would say, don't let perfection be the enemy of done here. Get the important issues out in front of the membership for discussion, and then they can be refined over time. That's one of the benefits of it. I will say in my dream world, we'd have, you know, maybe 100 like perfectly written positions that don't overlap with one another. A lot of our positions absolutely overlap with one another. So there's some duplication within the platform right now. And someday when we all have spare time, we'll work on how to consolidate the positions and make them concise. So for one, they're just easier to access and understand, to be quite honest. Having 225 positions is not optimal because it does make the system more complex. And the goal ultimately is that it's easy for you to find what you need, and it's easier for you to understand once you find it, what it means. So, you know, we're all part of a continuous improvement model. That's what we do. We are at 6 o'clock and I do not want to pass us, keep you longer than necessary. Any final questions? I do see one question here. It's just directed to me. How are the positions transmitted to the legislators? They're not. In fact, really, they're not relevant to legislators at all. These are really for us. These are member adopted positions for us to know where WSSDA membership stands as it relates to bills that come through the legislature. So when bills are proposed, particularly me as your representative staff, and I have read all 225 positions, I have an understanding of how to take a look at a bill and then analyze the position catalog to determine whether or not there is some connection there. The Ledge Committee also does that work every single week when we meet on Thursdays during the Ledge session to take our position platform and compare it to the bills that are up for hearings. So I think legislators know that we have positions, but they really don't know necessarily how WSSDA operates. And as it relates to this level of specificity, how we function, I don't know that it's critical for them to actually know our positions. It's more critical for us to be communicating our priorities, our values, and our needs to them directly in a conversation. If you show them the position platform, they may blank out for just a second. It's a lot of information. And yes, so her question was, are the positions basically the playbook for WSSDA legislative team as we interface with legislators? Yes, that's a really great way to describe it. It is our playbook, essentially. Okay, I'm just looking through to make sure. Yes, the recording of tonight's meeting will not be emailed to participants, but it will be posted on the WSSDA YouTube channel.